Hello fellow cinephiles. So with the release of Glass coming out next week, which is ultimately become the third film in what's known as the Unbreakable Trilogy by M. Night Shyamalan, I've decided to go back and review the first two films, so Unbreakable and Split, and then just talk a bit about those before the release of the new film. Unbreakable. This was directed by, like I said, M. Night Shyamalan, starred Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Wright Penn. So the film sort of opens up, we meet Elijah Price, played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's a baby being born and there's something not quite right with him and we don't quite know what it is to begin with. And then we're sort of introduced to David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis. He's returning from a interview he had in New York on a train, and ultimately he's involved in a train crash. When he awakens, he learns not only that he was in an accident, but he's the sole survivor of this train crash. And he doesn't quite know how that's possible, and the doctors don't really know why either. Ultimately, he's released from hospital and able to go home, and he starts to have a lot of questions about what happened and who he is, and he feels a feeling of dread and feels like he should be doing something, but he doesn't quite know what it is. And then he finds a particular letter stuck to the windshield of his car, and this is where we're reintroduced to Elijah Price, who's now an adult and owns a comic book art gallery known as Limited Edition. He starts to help Dunn come to terms with what's going on and who he might be and who he truly is. And he talks about him being on one end of the spectrum, that he has a particular disease, that his bones are like glass and break very easily. And there has to be, he believes, someone on the other end who's really strong, and he believes this may be done. So throughout the film, he really starts to get him to ask questions and look at his life. And Dunn starts to slowly realise particular things that transpired, things that he hasn't been truthful about, and also things of how he's always felt, and the surprises that he learns along the way. And he ultimately becomes the person and the hero that everybody wants him to be and he feels he should be. And then Elijah Price is someone who's not quite what he seems, and he's revealed to be a particular person, and really looks at his actual involvement within what's happened to Dunn and what's transpired for him. And it's kind of it leads to a really sort of shocking twist at the end, which is really great. Look, I'm a big fan of this film. I think it's M. Night Shyamalan's best film. I think it's a great superhero film. It's the type of film that not a piece of dialogue, shot or a scene that doesn't work towards the story. Nothing's wasted. Everything serves a purpose. Every little scene has a point purpose to it that leads to the bigger story. And I think this is a really great example of how that's done. Now, this film came out in 2000 and was ultimately not that well received, and this was before comic book movies really started to take off, and it sort of came too early. And M. Night always wanted to do a trilogy but never got to do it, and he obviously has been able to do it now with the release of Split and Glass coming up very shortly. This is ultimately, if you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend it, but it's ultimately a superhero story, a realistic sort of portrayal of a superhero film. Tarantino was quoted as saying he felt this was like a Superman story. What if Superman, came to Earth, didn't know he had these abilities or didn't know who he was, and he slowly starts to work out who he is and the abilities that he does have, and what that would be like for him, being the age of Dunn is. It's kind of an interesting idea, and I think just one of Tarantino's favourite films, and one of mine too. I think M. Night just did a great job with this. Everything's storyboarded. Each shot is just beautifully executed. There's a great scene at the start where Dunn's on the train and it's shot between two seats, and it's just so brilliantly done and captivated and executed. It's very impressive with what he's able to do, and each shot has that. Each shot feels like it could be a panel from a comic book, and I think that's what he was going for. They're just beautifully shot. They take their time to tell the scene and the story. He's not scared to have the camera back and let the actors act in a long shot, and it's just brilliantly done. Or even have a particular scene done, all the coverage done on one actor in a doorway. I think that's brilliant. I think he was really trying to do something different here, and it was a refreshing look at the superhero film before the superhero films have taken over and we're inundated with them now and saturated so much by the superhero culture. I think this one sticks out as something impressive. Yes, it is a slow burner. It does take its time to tell a story, but I think it's needed to in the way it's told. There's minimal dialogue. The dialogue that is used always serves a point to the story and the characters and what's going on. But there isn't a lot of dialogue in most things. It's more about visuals and the action and what transpires. There's only a small amount of visual effects in this, but it's a grounded, solid film about a particular man trying to work out who he is and trying to work out why he was the sole survivor of this train crash and no one else did, and what makes him so special. I think also what this does really well, and this might be a bit of a spoiler, is it sort of sets up the hero and the villain. You don't usually see a film where it sort of has the origin of the hero and the villain, and it does it so seamlessly. And it's sort of the origin story of these two characters, especially in this film. Elijah Price, where he came from and why he became ultimately who he became and why he was doing what he was doing. And David Dunn being the hero he ultimately becomes. And I think this is a refreshing take on the whole thing. I've been very, very impressed with this film. Final verdict. Look, if you like superhero movies a bit different, if you want a realistic take on the superhero genre and what it means to be a hero, this might be for you. This is one of Bruce Willis's best performances, I believe. And Samuel L. Jackson is actually fantastic as well. Robin Wright Penn does a really fantastic job in this as Dunn's wife, and I think she's brilliant as well. Even the little kid that they have playing the son, David Dunn's son, is really great. It's just a really well-made film, and I'm very impressed with it. And if you want something that's a little different, it's big explosions and visual effects, you might enjoy this. Look, I'm going to give Unbreakable 5 out of 5. I think it's brilliant. I think nothing's wasted. It's a near perfect film. It's brilliantly done and executed and shot. And M. Night should be very proud of himself with what he was able to accomplish with this film. And I'm a real big fan of it and highly recommend it. Anyway, like I said, next film I'll be reviewing is Split on the way to Glass, and then Glass obviously when that comes out next week. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.